writers. You're selecting 30 and then one doesn't even watch baseball all year? Jacob deGrom had like 27 straight quality starts. If his team scores 3 runs, he wins like 26 games. If his team scores 4 runs, he goes like 33-0. Okay? Not even close. No one was even close. And hence the voting, nobody was even close. But one vote.
And it was no secret.
It irks me.
The season that deGrom was having.
But is that officially?
It was no secret. It became, to me at least, and to most baseball fans, it became must-watch TV.
Speaking of so many.
Must-watch TV anytime Jacob deGrom took them out.
That's the mettiest thing that happened this year.
Pretty much.
I mean, the Mets had a guy die in the stadium.
The guy die in the stadium in the fire.
They had a fire in the stadium. They didn't trade Syndergaard or deGrom when they could have got a king's ransom for him. I mean, all this Metty shit. But Keith Hernandez, another guy, he was out of the baseline. He might find himself out of the baseline too again tonight just because. But that's like the mettiest thing this year is Jacob deGrom 1.72, 10-9.
Is this our That's So Metty segment? Or
yeah, we might as well merge. That's so Metty. Hi, John Heyman. If we read your post earlier this week on Twitter, and we're not going to give away our adjective. It's our adjective. It's Metty. So the most Mets thing that you were talking about, it's Metty. Yeah, so that's
what he meant.
So Jacob deGrom, your 2018, is that the death of the win partner? 2018 NL Cy Young Award winner, almost unanimous.
That combined with the opener, it might be.
The death of the win. Yeah, because you got guys on Tampa Bay that had 15 wins that made 4 starts.
Yeah, and you got guys that started games because they would only go 2 innings.
Agreed. One thing that the opener is giving it is giving the gift to fantasy owners, the gift of dual eligibility. That is one thing that the opener is good for, is dual eligibility. You got to hope one of those guys ends up getting saves in our league anyway. Moving on to the AL Cy Young Award. Again, we had it.
Blake Snell, speaking of the Tampa Bay Rays, became an ace this season. 21 wins, a 1.89 ERA. Led the AL in both of those for a Tampa Bay Rays team that, like you said, waved the white flag.
You're under a deuce
before the season started.
You're under a deuce in the AL East. Hand him the award.
Absolutely. 21 wins on that team.
No, far and away the WAR leader for AL pitchers. That's 7.5. I got one problem. One problem here, okay? Snell, Verlander, Kluber. I'm okay with that. Sale, too small of a sample size to be in 4th. Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, and Blake Trinan. I would have Trevor Bauer a little higher, maybe garnering some more than 13 votes. But Edwin Diaz receiving 4 votes in 8th place in the Cy Young Award. That is a travesty. That's a travesty.
That is ridiculous.
All right.
He was right there.
Single-handedly put that team. He was in my top 3 too. Single-handedly put that team on his back at times. To not have him in there is just crazy. Crazy. Blake Trinan, too, another guy. Blake Trinan finished ahead of Edwin Diaz with 13 points over Edwin Diaz's 4.
How many innings
I got a problem with Diaz
pitch?
being that low.
How many innings did Sale end up?
Let's see. 158. 158 innings. Too small of a sample size. I'm sorry.
For a starter.
For Cy Young. If it were for Rookie of the Year, like Michael Fulmer had like 145 innings pitched a couple years ago when he won the Rookie of the Year, I'm all right with that. But not for the Cy Young. 150 innings, getting shut down at the end of the year to rest you. Come on, go pitch. Take the ball and go pitch. But all is right in the world with Snell and deGrom. Not too much surprise for us anyway, maybe for some others out there in the NL and AL MVP voting. Christian Yelich, not even close. He sweeps the first place votes. I'm sorry, he didn't. Jacob deGrom got a vote. Jacob deGrom got an MVP.
Good for that guy.
Right. 29 votes for Christian Yelich, 415 points to Javi Baez's 250. Had a fantastic year. Fantastic year. And then a little bit of a surprise with who finished second. Mookie Betts finishes first, 28 first-place votes. Mike Trout gets a first-place vote. And J.D. Martinez finishing fourth with a first-place vote. I don't disagree with the J.D. Martinez vote, other than the fact that I know we're going to have this big DH discussion here. I'm just surprised that a guy that finishes in the top three in every major statistical category offensively can't crack the top three.
I will say J.D. Martinez did win the Hank Aaron Award as top hitter in the AL.
Good.
So that's full acknowledgement that, hey, if this guy played in the field, he's MVP, basically. Christian Yelich winning the Hank Aaron in the NL.
That's it.
Couple other ones I'll mention. Roberto Clemente Award, given out to the player who best represents the game through positive contributions on and off the field, including sportsmanship and community involvement. Yadier Molina of the St. Louis Cardinals, and the MLB's inaugural Executive of the Year, Billy Beane of the Oakland A's.
Good for Billy. Good for Moneyball. It was a good year for Moneyball.
Relievers of the Year, Edwin Diaz, Josh Hader.
Makes sense. So that's it. There's your awards updates. Now, moving on, we already discussed a little bit of action.
Before we
with
move
the
on, I
Braves.
just saw an interesting thing. So
Go ahead.
This goes back to the Miguel Andujar, Shohei Ohtani debate. And there are Players' Choice Awards where the players vote. Player of the Year, J.D. Martinez, as voted by the players. Man of the Year, Curtis Granderson, former Yankee, former Met, former Dodger, former Tiger, former... I'm missing teams.
The Grandy Man can.
The Grandy Man can. Man of the Year. So, in the American League, the most outstanding player, Mookie Betts. Most outstanding pitcher, Blake Snell. So, no discrepancies there. Outstanding rookie, as voted by the Major League Baseball players, Miguel Andujar. Miguel Andujar is Rookie of the Year according to the players.
Good. Congratulations to all of our award winners out there, both the ones that we picked and the ones that we didn't pick. You had a great year. You made 2018 outstanding, so good job out there.
Yep, the NL, as voted by the players, no changes in what the writers voted. Yelich, DeGrom, and Acuna.
Forgot about the senior circuit.
Same as what was voted on by the writers, though. The main point there that I saw that I wanted to go over was Miguel Andujar getting Rookie of the Year
that's amazing
through the eyes of the players.
That's good. At least somebody recognized it for him. So we already touched on some transactions that happened with the Braves. Couple free agent signings there, bringing McCann and Josh Donaldson over and kind of sparking things. But the first big-ish trade of this offseason happened a couple weeks ago. The Big Maple?
Big trade.
The Big Maple?
Big Maple. I think that's what it is.
The Big Maple. Right? Big Maple. Yeah. The Big Maple goes to the Big Apple. The Big Maple.
Big trade.
It is a big trade. So... James Paxton moving from Seattle to the Yankees. The Yankees could be shoring up the top of the end of that rotation, although he hasn't thrown many innings. He is injury prone, as we know. He did strike out 208 and throw a no-hitter in 2018, so there's that. When he is on point, he is on point. The fastball is explosive. Power lefties play in Yankee Stadium so well.
Big strikeout guy.
Huge
big power arm, lefty.
Righty with him and Sevy up at the top. You're looking at a lot of strikeouts.
So in order to reel in a pitcher like that, the Yankees did have to part with Justice Sheffield, a couple other prospects.
Actually,
Eric
Swanson, worth mentioning. Kind of under the radar, but is making a push these last couple seasons and is about to crack. He was about to crack relevance in the Yankee system. So somebody to keep your eye on.
The arrow is trending up on Swanson for sure.
For sure.
He's not just some throw-in prospect. There's some big upside there too. He looks like he could be a major leaguer And yeah, that's a pretty big price to pay. That's the Yankees' #1 prospect in their farm system. That being said, the opportunity to bring in a James Paxton, and of course you're banking on his health, which you could really say that about any pitcher.
Yeah, but
any pitcher can go down at any time.
If there's a silver lining on an injury history for a pitcher, the silver lining for me is that there is no history of arm injury.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so sure, there might be some shoulder injuries in there, ankle, hamstring.
Nothing with the arm. He had a rib cage issue, he had a back issue, he had a hamstring issue. I'm all right with that. I'm not saying that I don't.
He's had a lot of issues, but
I'm not saying I don't want him to be on the field, but it's not.
There is
he hasn't had TJ
chronic arm problems with this guy. And that being said, to kind of put a positive spin on the fact that he has missed some time, the fact that it was not arm injuries does make him his arm a little bit more fresh, I guess. There's less mileage on that arm. Yeah, I personally like it. I've seen some Yankees fans complaining about letting go of Sheffield, but now is the time to really build that pitching staff.
Justice Sheffield is 2 seasons away. If you watched him this September,
and he's probably going to turn out to be a great pitcher. There's no disputing that.
He could be.
But you have to give to get.
He could be. There's always that could be. But James Paxton is, and has proven it over the last few seasons. Don't throw the ERA numbers at me. Let me see the strikeouts per 9. Let me see the strikeouts to walk ratio. I want those numbers because they're phenomenal. He's a top of the rotation guy. He's already proven it. Justice Sheffield is a could be. You got to make that deal. Paxton under control. You got to make that deal. And the Yankees made a good deal. What are they going to do next? That remains to be the question. So many Yankee fans are so butthurt about Ronald Torreyes getting cut.
Yeah, and traded today, actually, to the Chicago Cubs.
Well, that's good. He found a home.
Big Toe.
Big Toe is not Roberto Alomar, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to rain on everybody's parade and be this kind of Debbie Downer about Ronald Torreyes.
I love the guy. Don't get me wrong.
Me too. Okay, the Toe Night show. I
like
2 years
seeing
ago
him in the dugout.
It was fantastic, but he's not Jose Altuve.
I didn't like seeing him on the field.
He's not Jose Altuve.
If he was on the field, somebody was hurt.
If he was on the field, he wasn't hitting it out of the infield.
Yeah, if he was at the plate, he wasn't hitting it out of the infield. Where he stood at third base was probably as far out as he could hit the ball.
So much chatter about Ronald Torreyes.
The other thing is too, he did come up with a couple clutch hits.
The Yankee fans love people like that.
His few hits that he had, there were some high profile ones where he came through and had an RBI double or something, and he is what he is. You know, he's a minor leaguer that can come up and fill in at multiple positions, and great clubhouse guy. But yeah, the amount of people that are heartbroken over Ronald Torreyes leaving is it is kind of amusing.
Listen.
So he's a Chicago Cub now, and you know who he reminds me of. He's a really charismatic character. You know, he's got a great personality. He's always good in the clubhouse. He's always joking around with the teammates in the dugout. He reminds me of another guy that he was with the Blue Jays mostly, I think, but he ended up going to the Cubs too. I think it was his last stop before he went back to Japan. But Kawasaki, you remember Kawasaki?
Yes.
He kind of reminds me of like he's the next version of Kawasaki, just this hilarious small player who busts his ass, but he's not very good, and he's got a great personality. Somebody that everybody wants on their team, you know, cheering him on, but might not exactly want to see him out at the plate with the game on the line, for sure. But best of luck to Big Toe.
But he's not Roberto Alomar.
No.
Okay. So,
he's not Neil
you know
Walker,
what? I'm going to tie this in. Listen, thank you. I'm going to tie this in. You know, I'm going to jump ship a little bit. A little new segment that we're working on for next year called Don't Be That Fan. Okay, so don't be that fan.
Yeah, this segues really nicely into Don't Be That Fan.
Don't be that fan that thinks that Ronald Torreyes is worth rostering, but Neil Walker is not. Don't be that fan. So many people, so many Yankee fans out there that are hate Neil Walker, but cried when they traded Ronald Torreyes. What are you thinking about? So don't be that fan. But moving on, free agents. Bryce Harper, Patrick Corbin, Machado.
Yep, all the big ones
hanging
still out there with the exception of Donaldson.
And Donaldson I didn't have Donaldson up on that tier anyway.
And that's no surprise.
Just because of how he was hurt. And actually, Donaldson signing as quick as he did and for as much as he did this quick surprised me. I figured he's the type that's going to hold out for more years. But taking the 1-year deal, coming back on a contender.
And maybe he saw what happened to some guys like Neil Walker last year.
Yep, with no
Jake
spring
Arrieta.
training. Exactly. No spring training screws you over. So you take the 1-year deal, you prove you're still healthy, you come out, you play at an MVP caliber, you sign a 5-year deal after that, a 4-year deal after that for big money. I don't blame him. And he went and he chose a great team, an up-and-coming organization with the manager of the year.
Spot.
It's a good spot for them to be in, or for him to be in. Bryce Harper. Yankees supposedly are all out on Bryce Harper. Doesn't make any sense to me. Kid wants to play there.
I wouldn't necessarily believe it anyway.
I don't believe it, but like I said, supposedly all out and all in last week at some point in time, reading reports that they were all in on Manny Machado. I just don't see that as being productive for the Yankees. Speaking of...
I would take that all with a complete grain of salt in it, posturing and negotiation tactics. The Yankees, when they don't want things to get out, pursuing Giancarlo Stanton, barely even mentioned until maybe the day before the trade went down. You started to hear some rumors that something might be happening. You usually don't hear. The Yankees are that type of team where all of a sudden it'll just happen. James Paxton trade. Sure, you might have heard some whispers. Yankees might be interested in James Paxton, and boom, it was done without, without a whole lot of speculation.
Back to that James Paxton trade for a second. The stuff that we found out after that James Paxton trade is the stuff that was really interesting. Gene Segura potentially listed as an opportunity in that deal.
Yankees asked about Segura,
and now they're talking about Edwin Diaz with Robinson Cano coming back over for Jacoby Ellsbury. Just crazy. Jerry Dipoto all of a sudden, for being somebody making some really solid front end moves the last few off seasons and positioning Seattle in a place where they could contend in that West last season with some really budding young talent, the Mitch Hanigers of the world and Seguras. And now supposedly in all-out rebuild mode?
Yeah, Nelson Cruz is a free agent. He's likely not going to be going back. I was kind of surprised, too, when I heard Paxton. And also very surprised when I heard Kluber and Carrasco might be on the block as well.
That, my friend, I think is a joke. That, I think, is just... let's dangle this out there and see what we can do.
I think so, too.
But I don't think they're going in.
I think so, too. And
anywhere.
Right before we went on the air, I said, I think that the James Paxton trade happening so quick into the offseason is really an indicator of how serious the Cleveland Indians might be about trading Kluber and Carrasco. Because that trade happened so quick that...
the Yankees
speculating that if I'm the Yankees...
You definitely checked in on the other one.
If it was obvious that, okay, this will never happen, whether it's just a ridiculous asking price or whether it's, you test the waters a little bit and you realize that, okay, they're just trying to gauge value here. They're really not serious about trading these guys. And then the fact that Seattle is ready to start making some moves here, the fact that trade, that Seattle and the Yankees pulled the trigger so quickly on that trade tells me that they called on Kluber, Carrasco and figured, okay, we're not going to waste our time here because either this is going to be a long, drawn-out process or they're really not serious about potentially selling those guys off. Crazier things have happened, though.
I don't disagree with you, though. Not at all. Madison Bumgarner supposedly on the trading block today. The Giants did hire a new general manager. So now he is at the point in time where he needs to worry about how he's going to turn that around and what he's going to do going forward. So how do you come in and be the bad guy in San Francisco, your first day on the job, and say, you know what? we're going to trade a postseason icon.
Right. Yeah, that's a interesting spot, but it's also the type of thing where, okay, you're bringing in a new front office here. There really is no prior attachment to Madison Bumgarner. They weren't there for the World Series heroics, and they see it for what it is. It's a business, and I know fans have adored Madison Bumgarner, and rightfully so, because he did help that team. One year, in my opinion, single-handedly helped that team to a World Series championship. But yeah, it's a tough spot to come into and have to worry about fan perception versus trying to move forward and doing what the Mets didn't do last year with trading those assets that they do have to restock an entire farm system by moving a couple players. And San Francisco has the opportunity to do that now. And like I said, there is no attachment to the past there of the nostalgia of winning those World Series.
No, so
it's brand new front office.
Well, I'll tell you how much of a connection there isn't anymore is that the Giants went out and hired this guy, Farhan Zaidi is his name. They go out and hire this guy straight out of the Dodgers front office. So if that doesn't tell you that there's no connection to the past, I don't know what does. But straight out of the Dodgers front office, they go and hire this Farhan Zaidi, and he's got things to think about. That's an understanding fan base. That is a smart, educated baseball fan base. They understand if they go into rebuild mode out there in Frisco. They understand that they're going to be at the bottom of the division for a year or two.
Yeah, and they've had some good years. They've had some good runs and some championships, but before that, they were ugly
contracts with years left.
Suffering fan base for a long time.
They got some ugly years left.
They do
for some contracts.
And
the Cueto
and they're one of
the
highest payrolls in the game.
Yes,
and one of the oldest rosters in the game. But they had a long history, not quite as bad as the Cubs, but a long time of not winning a championship there, and then they got 3 of them in pretty quick fashion here over the last decade. And those diehard fans that have been there a long time, they've already been through some rough times. So
Samardzija on the books for 19 this year.
Yeah, Longoria's got to be on the hook for a little bit too.
Longoria's on the hook for a couple more years. 15 years he signed that contract for. It's obviously some deferred money. But they got some years left. They got 5 years left on the Longoria deal. Johnny Cueto on the books for 21.8. Longoria on the books for 15. Posey on the books for 22. Brandon Belt on the books for 17.2. Melanson on the hook for 14. Baumgartner on the hook for 12. They got some decision making to do out
Matt
there
Bum's
in the
free agent after this season, I believe.
They got to trade
one
him.
more year.
I don't see a scenario how you don't trade him this offseason and come out ahead or come out a winner. Or maybe you can stall rebuild mode just for a short period in time here. You can stall rebuild mode in Frisco. And you go into the season with Posey, Longoria, Cueto, Samardzija, Brandon Crawford, Brandon Belt, Melanson, Baumgartner, Sandoval. You go into the season, you maybe put some pieces around. And you see what's up. Decent bullpen still left out there. But not an easy job for this Zaidi guy. Not at all. So back to the Giants. Chris, if you're out there, you're on YouTube, let me know what you think. My buddy Chris, a big-time Giants fan. The offseason's heating up, guys. Nothing else to say other than that. Looking forward to what's going to be going on at the winter meetings coming up here soon, next 2 weeks. Seeing when the chips are going to fall. It's interesting, Sean had mentioned a few minutes ago that Neil Walker A notable guy without without a spring training last year, signed really late. Jake Arrieta sat around for a while, signed really late, kind of got off to a rough start. How many guys are going to want to do that now? Last year was a really late free agent signing period. You wonder how long it's going to go into this year. Are we going to see a lot of action at the winter meetings? See a lot of deals? The Baumgartners. Again, I don't see how there's any scenario that they win this offseason without trading Madison Bumgarner. But I'm looking forward to the winter meetings. I'm hoping a lot of stuff happens. SPG, welcome back.
You know a lot of stuff will happen at the winter meetings, and they're, 2 weeks away now?
2 weeks away.
That's when
Rule 5.
That's when the action really kicks up
on December 13th. Lots of stuff going on. Looking forward to it. That's it. That's your news and notes. Who's tuning in out there? Anybody tuning in? Send us a message. You got any questions? And speaking of tuning in, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been an awesome run so far this year, and kind of like to just thank Disruption Network here. Z and Todd and Chicken and the boys at Disruption have made us part of the family, and we appreciate it. This has been a great year for you and I. And speaking of Disruption Network, they will be celebrating their 2-year anniversary coming up on February 9th. It's going to be at Wakely's. Wakely's, Utica, New York, 700 Varick Street. Entertainment this year.
2 years already.
Entertainment
2
this year.
years. 2 great years here at the D.
You ready for this? Entertainment provided by Mr. Jack Brown and Sophistafunk. Also, our boys Ease Beats and Bizz will be there providing some DJ entertainment, food, giveaways, live podcasts. We will be live, drink specials, games, and we will be presenting our Disruption Awards, the Viewer Awards. And it's all going down at Wakely's. February 9th, it's a Saturday night. Come celebrate 2 years of the D.
Man, I'll tell you, the D can put on an anniversary party. Remember last year at Cavallo's?
Awesome.
That was a blast, and I know this year at Wakely is going to be even better. That's an awesome venue for it. The EC reunion party the D did there earlier this year was a ridiculously good time. Good times, man. And this party is going to be right up there. If
ain't no party like a Disruption party.
That's right.
So February 9th, come see us, and thanks to everybody at the Disruption Network for giving us a home to talk baseball.
Yeah, and we love being part of the family. We love these events. We love all the other podcasts, the D-Line and Home Free, Wrestle Fandom Radio.
This is for you, Disruption. 2 years.
Ease Beats and Bizz. And EC Radio every Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. So many good guests on EC Radio. Some of the stuff that Z has been doing lately has been awesome.
Yeah, Vic DiBitetto.
When he had Vic on the other day.
All right, the Yankees locker room guy. I know you get any Yankee fans out there listening know Vic DiBitetto, the Yankees locker room guy. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So
General
tune
Fatigue.
in, check them all out. General Fatigue.
General Fatigue, Ellsbury.
General Fatigue. Yes. Perfect. So moving on, we're gonna get into a little segment we like to call the Haps on the Haps, where each week SPG and I like to give you the updates on J Hap and his not so brother Ian Hap.
What's the haps on the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps.
So who you got this week? You got Ian Hap or J Hap?
I'll take J-Hap because I don't know if anything is going on with Ian
That's
Happ
good because I got Ian Hap's update here.
Good.
All right.
So J-Hap, free agent right now, has not yet signed with a new team, which is not surprising as we're just getting started into the free agency period here. Supposedly the Padres are interested in J-Hap. The Cubs, the Mariners, the Dodgers, and the A's are also teams that have reached out to his agent and frankly would all be pretty good spots for J-Hap. He's been incredibly reliable over the last several years. He's 36 years old, but he's started 30 games in each of the last 4 seasons. And I think he's going to come at a bargain price compared to a lot of these free agents out there. So keep your eye on where J-Hap ends up. And 36 years old, still going strong, still still going. And still a part of a lot of good playoff runs to come, potentially.
So Ian Happ, chilling there with the Chicago Cubs.
With his new teammate, Ronald Torreyes.
And his other new teammate.
Buddy.
He's got another new teammate, too. We're going to talk about his other new teammate in a minute. Ian Happ managed to go to the Forest Lake Golf Club in Apopka, Florida yesterday, and he managed to do 45 on the way out and 33. He fired a 33 on the way back in for an 86. Living that good life down there in Margaritaville, Apopka, Florida for Ian Happ.
So I know Jay Happ has a big payday coming, but I'd say in the short term, Ian Happ is the happiest Happ.
The happiest Happ is Ian Happ.
What's the haps on the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps, the haps.
So speaking of Ian Happ, speaking of the Chicago Cubs and new teammates and all, why don't you tell us what we're about to get into? The Chicago Cubs got a new guy by the name of Johnny Field.
Johnny.
So we're going to get into the field report here. The never-ending saga of the hardest player, the hardest working player in the major league system.
Ronald Torreyes' new best friend. He's currently working on a Christmas tree farm somewhere in Iowa.
That's right.
Getting ready for next season.
No,
he's probably really not, but
no, he's definitely not. And as evidenced by his WAR from last year, what was his WAR last year?
0.0.
So that's the field report.
There's the field report.
0.0.
There's the field report again.
So nice they said it twice.
Johnny Field, come on down. Johnny, listen, when you play, and I don't want to put you down in the AAAs yet. All right? But when you do go back down to AAA and you're playing in the International League and you happen to make your way up to the Syracuse Mets, really, so Metty. When you happen to make your way to the Syracuse Mets, I want to buy you lunch. I want to take you maybe to Dinosaur Barbecue and maybe have a beer with you before the game. And I just want to talk about the fungus on your shower shoes, Johnny. And
better yet, make the trip to Utica. Come visit us here at the D and catch a Blue Sox game. Maybe you can coach first base. I don't know.
0 for 2 strikeouts, Johnny. So that's the field report. That brings us to, you know what? I think that brings us to our 7th inning stretch.
I think it does.
7th inning stretch. We're flying tonight. Nothing to talk about. We're just making stuff up as we go along. Here's the 7th inning stretch.
The 7th inning stretch.
It is the 7th inning stretch, and this week, SPG and myself, we're going to do a little over-under. We're going to play some over-under. And we're going to play some Let's Make a Deal. What do you think about that? What do you want to do first?
I want to do it. I'm excited about this.
All right.
Hot stove talk.
Hot stove.
Hot stove.
What do you got first? What do you want to do? An over-under? Or you want to play Let's Make a Deal?
Yeah, let's do an over-under. I'll throw out one.
All right, go ahead.
A couple players we just talked about who probably will not play much in the majors this season, hopefully for the Cubs' sake. And this is going to be more of a either-or than an over-under. Who plays more games for the Chicago Cubs next season, Johnny Field or Ronald Torreyes?
Ronald Torreyes.
Ronald Torreyes. I think you're right.
And the reason that I say
being
that,
a utility
guy and Joe Madden. Speaking of Joe Madden tweeted yesterday an official statement, if you will, saying that he would be spending more time coaching this coming season than he would talking to the media. Talking to the media, Joe? That's really what you're going to call it? You mean bringing in the mobile San Diego Zoo and Jack Hanna and orangutans and having pajama parties for your players? That's what you mean. You're going to stop doing that stuff, right, Joe? You're going to coach?
Who gave Joe Madden a first place vote in the Manager of the Year voting, too? That was another one.
Horrendous.
And don't get me wrong. I have the highest regard for Joe Madden, but this season, if you're judging it by this season, why would you even consider giving him any votes, let alone a first place
He
vote?
failed. Lost the division in game 163. I don't understand it. But Joe Madden comes out yesterday. He says he's going to be spending more time coaching. He used to let his assistants or, the hitting coach, the pitching coach,
Probably a good
do
idea.
their thing, but now he's going to have a little more oversight.
Probably a
good idea, Joe. Maybe a good idea. Maybe a little less zoo time, a little more you time. You think about that, Joe.
Safe.
You're safe for now. All right, I'm going to throw an over-under at you.
What you got?
Over under $350 million for Bryce Harper.
Under.
Wow. How far under?
It obviously depends on the years of the contract. But,
let's base it on 10.
Base it on 10. Not much under. I'll put it that way. I think it will be, if it's a 10-year deal. I mean, he's going to be making $30 million a year. If it's a 10-year deal, he's a $300 million plus player with this market. With how young he is, the success he's had, he's won an MVP. He's 25 years old. He's younger than Aaron Judge.
Yes.
Bryce Harper is younger than Aaron Judge.
He's already got an MVP.
It's not going to be $350 million in my opinion, but it will be in the low threes.
Well, there's talks of Boris looking for 4.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd hit $350 million and we'll see. Remember, there's already reports out there that he turned down $300 million for the Nationals, which I would have done it too. Why lock yourself up? I think we talked about this once before. Why lock yourself up when only one team can bid on you? When you're like 4 or 5 days away from 29 other teams being able to bid on you.
Right.
Why lock yourself up for $300 million? But the question is, how much above $300 million does he end up going? 325, 335, 345? I'm going to go over with that. I think he goes over $350 million. I think he's like maybe 355 for 10 is what I'm going to call it. But I like the fact that you went under on that. What do you want to do now? You got another over under for me?
I'll throw another over under out there. I'll do another contract one, and there might be a few more of these with the offseason upon us. Nate Eovaldi, $70 million. That's what he's looking for.
$70 million?
$70 million over 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
I could see him getting. I'm going to go under. You're talking total value, right? $70 million?
Right.
I will go under that. Under.
So yeah, you're looking at
But-
that would be $17-18 million a year.
I would say that he could make average annual value on that contract for 3 seasons. I don't know if anybody locks Eovaldi up with 2 TJs. I don't know. And throwing 103. Yeah, it's all well and good, but when you're coming off of 2 TJs and you're throwing that hard, science dictates that it's probably going to happen again. So I don't know if anybody locks him up.
Yeah, it's a total
for 4
buy
years.
high right now. It is a total buy high.
I told you, we talked about it during the World Series, that every strike that kid threw was earning him another $1 million. Every single strikeout, anyway. So,
and he was a big part of this.
I'm going to say that he goes under $70 million, but he could hit that average annual value. 18 mil, 17 mil. But for like 3 years. If somebody gives him 4, I don't see him being in it at 70 million.
I'm thinking 15 mil per season, 4 years. So $60 million.
Once somebody taught him that cutter, he became a frontline starter. And we mentioned it the day I saw him pitch this year. The first day he pitched, we had a show that day. And I said, somebody taught Nate Eovaldi a cutter, and it looks awesome.
I mentioned him multiple times as a guy that the Yankees should have their eye on leading into the trade deadline. And sure enough, the Boston Red Sox went out and pulled the trigger and made a great move to pick him up. And props to them for Steve Pearce, too. That move was huge. And they've re-signed Steve Pearce to a 1-year deal, by the way. But, yeah, there's been some damage to that arm. And the way he throws the ball, it could all fall apart for him again at the blink of an eye. I still think, like you said, he made himself a lot of money last season.
For sure.
And postseason. And I think you're going to see him signing in the 15 to 16 mil range, maybe for 4 years. We'll see. So I think under as well on the 70, but yeah, I see him as maybe a 60 mil guy if we're talking the 4-year term.
All right, I'm going to give you one. How about over under the Yankees and the luxury tax threshold? So, just to give you some current figures, New York Yankees committed 2019 payroll. They are at, let's see, all of it, cap totals. Currently $103 million, which you know is that's gonna jump up. They're at $103 million, and the Lux tax threshold for this season is 206. So basically, over under the Yankees spending $103 million from now until the beginning of the season. So that's three $30 million contracts.
I'm going to say under. I think they're going to stay under the luxury tax. They're obviously going to spend because they have some space now after years and years of patience. That's why they're in the position they are. With you said $103 million of committed salary. They just picked up Paxton, who only made...
that's with all of these free agents hanging out there. You got guys that they haven't signed yet.
Oh yeah, you need depth players that are going to be making $5 to $10 million and starters, and it's going to add up quick. It sure will. But I don't see them going above the tax threshold. And the reason being because they have been pretty smart financially over the last several years, going back to the last blunder years, really the Ellsbury contract, the year Cano left. But they are in the position they are now because they didn't go out there and blow big money on guys like David Price and a few of these other big name people that went out there and got monster money. So they're going to spend, but I still think they're going to stay under that threshold. They'll be close to that 200 mil mark for sure, but I don't think they're going to go over the 203.
Okay. I'm going to go... Well, no, it's my turn.
Especially if they can shed some money in the Ellsbury contract somehow. And Sonny Gray, not that he's making a ton, but there's a couple more million off the books right there if they can make a move to dump him on somebody. Interesting note, too, I was reading that the Yankees... the Mariners actually wanted Sonny Gray back, supposedly, reportedly.
Please.
In that deal. And...
You're going to take Gray and Ellsbury
the
from
Yankees
us?
said no. I'm talking about in the Paxton trade.
Oh.
And the Yankees said no. So to me, that tells me they already have almost a dead set plan of what they're going to be doing with him. And the return of whatever they're expecting will happen outweighs anything else they would have got back in that Paxton trade. So, yeah, Sonny Gray is going to be on the move here soon. There's no doubt about that. They've already acknowledged publicly that they're looking to move him, and he likely, almost guaranteed, will not be back in pinstripes and Yankee pinstripes next season. So, yeah, you might see a little bit of a few mil shedded off that, and you will certainly see a lot of money added onto that 103. And we'll know a whole bunch more here probably at the winter meetings and the weeks after that. And then the Yankees, if they do what they did last year, they might be able to wait out some of these guys and do what they did with Neil Walker last year and bring a guy like him in for a dirt cheap salary and kind of fill out the bottom end of your roster, your injury replacements, your bench guys with those bargain free agent signings and young players coming up from the minors.
All right, your turn. Over under. You going to give me
under.
one? Yeah.
All right, I'll give you this one. Over under, and I already know your answer on this. Over under on Bryce Harper's contract term. 8.5.
Over.
I'm going to say under on that one too. I don't think he's going to get a 10. I don't think he's going to get a 10-year deal.
I do.
I think he's going to get a ridiculously big contract. I don't think he's going to get 10.
I think he gets 10 years. I think it goes 10 years. 10 years, 355. That's mine. Over under 175 innings pitched for James Paxton.
Man, I want to say over so bad.
Yeah, obviously.
I want to say over so bad. I'm going to say under. but I'm going to put it in the range of like 160.
Okay, so still that's a lot of innings for James Paxton.
Yeah.
That's equal to his output for this year.
Yeah, I think 175.
So you're banking on him getting hurt.
I think 175 is too much, but I think he could do 160. Like you said, there have not been any major arm injuries, and I hope I'm not cursing. I got to knock on some wood here, but I think obviously that is an optimistic view of it. But I'm going to say 160.
Okay.
And he gets hurt, maybe misses 3-4 starts here and there.
All right, we got a few more here. What's next for you?
All right. Jacob deGrom, 9.5 wins over under.
Over. Well,
I think
well
so
over. I don't think it can happen again.
Can that happen again?
I don't think it can happen again. And I'm saying over because hope for Jacob deGrom is that he's not a Met after like May or June.
That's a good point too.
All right, so I'm gonna go over.
What a soap opera that was! I was glued to the TV.
But the death of the wind might signify that.
Anytime deGrom pitched, I was glued to the TV, hoping he would win, rooting for the Mets to do something. The script was the same every time. And it became like watching some kind of sitcom or something, or National Lampoon's movie. Just right when you think, maybe they're going to win this one. Jake deGrom has 2 RBIs today. And
Jacob deGrom has 2 RBIs and has surrendered no runs. Then they lose. Here comes Juris Familia. Here's the pitch. The Mets lose.
Yep.
That's
and
it.
It didn't happen as much with the other starters. That's the mind-blowing thing is that
Mets had what? What do they have? 79. Speaking of which, here's a good segue into my next over-under. Over-under 81 wins for the Mets. Over-under a 500 team for the Mets.
Under. So I can't. Without having any offseason moves have happened so far for the Mets, no significant acquisitions. I can't go over in that. Even though you got to figure Jake deGrom's going to win at least 15 games, you have to figure that if he stays healthy. But I don't see it. I don't see it with this current group. The GM hire they went out and made, the jury's out on him. Obviously, he's brand new at doing this, and
I don't remind me of what
give me a whole lot.
Remind me of what his job was previous to this.
He was a player agent for Jacob deGrom
and who else?
And Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah.
And now he's the GM of the team.
And who did they decide to retain?
Yeah, Omar Minaya is back.
Yeah. JP
Ricciardi. I believe he's back too.
Wicked smart. Well, so metty. It's so metty. You guys are so metty. I got a couple more. How about over under February 1st for Manny Machado to sign?
Under.
Think he gets done? Think he gets done quick?
I don't know about quick, but I think, well, I guess relatively quick if you're looking at the offseason as a whole. I don't know how soon it'll be from now, but I don't think it'll be long after the winter meetings. I think it'll be sometime in December that he signs. At the same time, we'll see if this game of chicken between Bryce Harper and Machado could delay the process. They could be waiting for each other to sign their deals.
They are definitely waiting for each other. It's not even a question.
Yeah, you're right. It's
not even a question.
So that stalemate could drag it out. But I think he's going to want his money.
That's why I'm asking the question.
He is going to want his money, and I think it happens.
And I got one
before Christmas. I think it happens.
I got one more over under. Then we'll play a little. Let's make a deal. Okay. One more over under. Over under 5 seasons for MLB expansion.
Ooh. That's a good one. I'm going to say under.
Me too.
Under.
I go under.
I don't think it'll be in the next 2 years. I'd say like 3-4 years from now, it could be a reality.
In light of some things that happened this week, yesterday, particularly, we're going to talk about it in Out of the Baseline. But in light of some things that happened, I think that it's inevitable that baseball expands someplace in the West first. Not to say there's not going to be much more. I think obviously they're going to come in 2s, but I think under 2. I think you're looking at 3 or 4 seasons before Major League announces expansion and sets a franchise and awards a franchise and puts it all in place.
Sure, yeah, 'cause
it might be 10 seasons before we see
it's announced, and then there's
Then 3
years of system development and brand development
and drafting
and organizational development, whether it's employees or players.
And then the expansion draft, and there's just a lot of stuff that's going on. But over under 5 years, a solid announced expansion. I'm going under. You're
I'd
going
say under 2.
I like that. All right, let's play a little Let's Make a Deal. So I challenged you today.
Let's do a couple of them.
All right, I challenged you today to do one, so I got one, but I can come up with more off the top of the cuff. I challenged you to make a deal, make a trade, not a free agent signing. I wanted to hear you make a trade. Who you got?
So the first one, I'm going to have one for the Yankees.
Okay.
And one for one of their division rivals that I hope doesn't happen, but that I think wouldn't be shocking if it does someday. Jose Abreu of the Chicago White Sox. He's a free agent after this season. His name has come up in trade rumors here and there over the last couple of years. Very quietly, one of the most consistent right-handed hitting power first baseman in the game. And the Chicago White Sox are obviously a rebuilding team. They're a few years away. Jose Abreu's not getting any younger. I don't have his exact age up here, but I want to say he's around 30, 31. Got some good years left. Free agent after this coming season. Realistically, do you think the White Sox look to re-sign him? Maybe, I guess, but the alternative is to flip him to a team that needs a first baseman, and that happens to be the New York Yankees right now. There was rumors of the Yankees talking to Arizona about Paul Goldschmidt, which I think would be obviously a phenomenal addition as well, that I'd be even more excited about as a Yankees fan over Abreu. But you think if you get more realistic and you think about the return becoming a little bit more reasonable, you set your eyes on a guy like Jose Abreu, make a trade for him. There's your power-hitting first baseman right there. Trade Greg Bird and some good prospects for him. The Yankees farm system, they traded Justice Sheffield, is still pretty rich in talent. There is a lot of good young talent there. And maybe Chicago wants to take a shot on Greg Bird. I don't know. Maybe not. But if they do, package Bird with some good young talent, some good potential, and pull the trigger there. I haven't heard that mentioned really anywhere, but I think it's a realistic fit. I'd like to see it happen as a Yankees fan. Would love Goldschmidt more, but the price there is going to be considerably heftier, I would say, with a Goldie.
I like it. It fills a need. They're talking about Goldschmidt, like you say. So I do. I like that. All right. I got one. I'm going to trade. I am the San Diego Padres. I'm looking for an arm. The New York Mets have announced that Noah Syndergaard may be on the trading block. I'm the Padres. I got the number one farm system in the bigs. I can afford to eat into it to get a guy in Noah Syndergaard under control through 2022. He's a UFA after 2022. To put him out there with that young budding core that you have out there. But you got to eat into it. You got to sacrifice some guys. So I got Noah Syndergaard to the Padres for Will Myers, Mackenzie Gore, left-handed pitcher Mackenzie Gore, and right-handed pitcher Cal Quantrill. So you're taking number 2 and number 12 out of the Padres system in return for a guy under control for 4 seasons. And then the Mets are taking a contract back in Will Myers.
Yeah, I like it. And that young team in San Diego, and Syndergaard's not old. I know he's battled some arm issues and he's had some back problems, but he's not that old. He's got some good years ahead if his health can improve. Again, as you can say about just about any pitcher, the health is always going to be a risk.
So Will Myers due $20 million.
Yeah.
a year over the course of the next 4 through 2022. The Padres would be able to dump that contract obligation, perhaps opening them up to go out and sign some other pieces. The Padres get rid of Myers. Obviously, they lose number 2 and number 12 in their system. But
the Padres have a lot of good young outfielders.
They do.
And they have Eric Hosmer signed at a big contract at first base.
An inexplicable contract.
So you move Will Myers because he's taking up a spot for a even younger player.
Fernando Tatis.
Franchi Cordero.
Cordero.
Guys like that.
Right. Yep.
And, yeah, you get the money off the books. And he seems like the type of player that the Mets would take on. They've done that before. They're not afraid to take on some money. Could see the Mets end up with Robinson Cano for that matter. I think it would make sense for both teams, and it would be a great way for the Padres to kind of turn that corner from rebuilding team to, hey, you know what? The San Francisco Giants are kind of crumbling here. The Arizona Diamondbacks are losing Patrick Corbin. Paul Goldschmidt's a free agent after this season. You know, with your eye on the future here, next 2-3 seasons, you build around Syndergaard and that young team. You know, you could be looking at being the next Atlanta Braves that just one of these years they all blossom at the same time and become a playoff team. Playoffs.
So there. That's my let's make a deal. You got some more sitting around?
I'm going to throw one out there, and I'm not going to have as much detail as you did with the prospects and everything. And this is one that is pretty realistic, I think, and frightening for me as a Yankees fan to what the Red Sox could be acquiring here. But Edwin Diaz to the Red Sox, I think, makes a world of sense. With Craig Kimbrell as a free agent, Diaz is 24 years old.
What possesses anybody to want to get rid of him?
It blows my mind. It really does, especially the team control.
He's under control.
24 years old. I mean, I don't get it. I don't know. They're trying to sell high, obviously, and it's 24
years old. No selling higher than that. No selling higher than that. He coming off a remarkable year, but 24 years old, under org control, at the back end of that bullpen. You might as well just kiss your fans goodbye if you start trading pieces like that away. They can understand Nelson Cruz going. They can understand getting rid of Cano's contract. I would understand that as a fan. You're dumping our 24-year-old lights-out closer who's under org control? What are you expecting to build around? How long do you want to be in the cellar?
That just traded their ace.
Agreed. You know? So, yeah, you're right.
Which was
total opposite end of where Jerry DiPoto was last season going into the winter meetings, where there was talks about them being the bullies going into the winter meetings. And now this year, they're going to be the sellers. Just so, it's a fickle game. But I like that one, too. Not in terms of the Red Sox.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. I really hope it doesn't happen.
It does make total sense. So that's it, I think, for the 7th inning stretch. A little over-under, a little let's make a deal. 7th inning stretch was brought to you by NYE Volkswagen, Rome, New York. Stop into the showroom at 5865 Taberg Road in Rome and see why all their customers say they love their NYE VW. Mention Disruption Network and receive $250, $250 for saying anything about the Baseline or Wrestle Fandom Radio or Ease Beats and Bizz or Home Free with Adeline Van Dyke, EC Radio. You mention Disruption Network and you get $250.
Yeah, I'll buy you a whole bunch of gas for your new car.
$250 off your new vehicle purchase. And they are going to Volkswagen tomorrow with EC Radio.
Yeah, keep an eye out for EC Radio.
Tomorrow morning, EC Radio, tune into Disruption Network. They'll be on there with a financing special. That's as Z dubbed it, a financing special. So tune in to check out what that is all about. And check out the inventory at NYEVWRome.com. NYEVW. And also big shouts to our sponsor, Utica Club, and our sponsors over there at Saranac, loyal sponsors. Thank you so much for that. December 5th, the big anniversary coming up for Saranac. First beer served in after Prohibition. December 5th is when it happened. And come on down to Saranac Brewery that day, and they will buy you a Utica Club.
On a silver platter paraded down the street just minutes after Prohibition was lifted. It was a Prohibition lifting miracle.
A miracle. Jesus came, and he turned the water, hops, and barley into beer. He waved his hand and said, it's done. The
rest is history.
The 30 or 60 days or however long it takes to ferment.
And it is printed on the can. There's no doubt about it. Show your friends.
Along with this beautiful Lady Columbia embossed logo here, and the Pilsner Lager redundancy, and the XX Pure, made from the finest quality ingredients. Utica Club. Thank you, Saranac, for
Speaking of
the gift from the gods.
Fine Utica beverages, one of Disruption Network's other great sponsors, Utica Roasting Company. Cheers. Wake the hell up.
Wake the hell up.
The best coffee around. The best coffee you can get anywhere, in my opinion.
It is high-test stuff.
And not only can you, I mean, of course you can go down to Utica Roasting Company and get yourself a great, hot, fresh cup of coffee. And this is the time of year where that is just awesome to get a hot cup of Utica coffee. But you can also get that stuff in grocery stores. You can get all their awesome flavors, cannoli.
I'm pretty sure that they branded just that portion of it now. Wake the hell up is it's a whole separate animal now. It's such a thing. So wake the hell up with Utica Coffee.
Always love seeing the Utica Coffee Roasters mobile driving around town delivering coffee.
Love it.
You can get it at the grocery store now. You can go buy bags of coffee. You can buy the K-Cups. You can get it all over the place. And it is so good and so worth it.
So we are
really good after a night of drinking Utica Club. It segues really nicely into some Utica coffee the next.
Unless you got to go on like a road trip up the thruway. Let's say we're going to take a trip to Rochester to go see Johnny Field play,
or let's say we're going to take a trip down to Cooperstown or something. Grab a cup of Utica Roasters on the way down there.
Cooperstown, New York. Just a hop, skip, and a jump. Before we get into Out of the Baseline, we'll just talk quickly. The modern game committee about to meet coming up here soon. Going to meet on their ballot, and then the regular ballot where you got guys like Mike Messina and Edgar Martinez hanging out just on the cusp of getting in. Guys like Fred McGriff that need to get in. It's going to be interesting. But Mariano Rivera going to get inducted. Maybe the first unanimous, maybe not. Who cares? All of New York is going to descend on Cooperstown, New York.
Speaking of Cooperstown,
the third weekend in July, and we will be there broadcasting live from Main Street in Cooperstown. It's going to be wonderful.
We'll give you the details. We got a lot of big plans for next season too. That we'll be sharing some of that info on our Facebook page and our social media pages, and you'll see us on EC Radio from time to time talking about season 2.
Season 2 coming up in like February, maybe. Who knows? But lots of stuff. We're going to get into
Cooperstown's going to be
interviews and guests.
Speaking of Cooperstown, I got to give credit to Baseball King for a bunch of these posts I saw with some awesome stats, some awesome baseball stats I wanted to read down.
Let's hear them. I love these things.
So, if a baseball player stole 50 bases for 28 straight years, Rickey Henderson would still have more stolen bases. 50 bases for 28 straight seasons.
That's good, right?
Or narrow it down, 100 stolen bases for 14 years straight. There you go. And that's still not as many as the self-proclaimed greatest of all time.
Listen, Lou Bach was the epitome of great base stealing. But today, I am the greatest.
I do love Ricky, though.
Ricky loves Ricky.
He does. He does. I don't love Ricky as much as Ricky does, but I love Ricky. So this one is mind-blowing. Baseball King posts, Tony Gwynn faced Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Pedro Martinez, and John Smoltz. That's 4 of the not only greatest pitchers of that era, 4 of the best pitchers to ever do it. 323 times. All National League guys for a good portion of their careers. Pedro with the Expos and then the Mets before and after going to the American League and playing for the Red Sox. But Maddux, Glavine, and Smoltz spent almost all of their career in the National League. 323 at-bats versus those guys combined. Those guys were strikeout machines. Those guys were the best of the best that Tony Gwynn faced. He struck out 3 times. 3 times in 323 at-bats. Less than 1 out of every 100 at-bats.
Can I tangent off of that
Tony
one a little
Gwynn
bit?
struck out against those guys.
So, Gwynn, out of all those guys, you said, what, 327?
323.
107 of those were against Greg Maddux. 107 against, not arguably, really, in the National League, Greg Maddux was the best pitcher over his era, period.
And you know how many times he struck out?
Zero.
It equals Johnny
Fields' WAR.
0.0.
0 times Tony Gwynn stepped in the batter's box against Greg Maddux 107 times and struck out 0 times. He also hit 415 off him with a 476 on base percentage. Hit 415 off of Greg Maddux. So just the great Tony Gwynn. Keep going. I love these.
Tony Gwynn. Incredible. So Ty Cobb, he could have gone hitless in 2,529 consecutive at-bats at the end of his career, and he still would have been a 300-plus career hitter. Still would have hit over 300 if he went basically 5 full seasons of at-bats without a hit. Still a 300 hitter.
Ted Williams could go 952 at-bats hitless and still have a top 5 career on-base percentage.
That's insane.
952 at-bats hitless and still have a top 5 on-base percentage.
I appreciate Baseball King posting this stuff too, because they are a great follow. Always posting great stats and cool baseball stuff. So check out Baseball King. Definitely one of my favorites. So this last one is going to segue into our Out of the Baseline of the Year award.
Out of the baseline of the year.
Pete
We're
Rose.
throwing you. If you get thrown out for the year, you messed up.
You know you did. So Pete Rose.
You're out.
Oh, sorry, Pete.
Yeah,
you're
that
not
works
out yet.
too. That works.
You're not out yet.
That is no, he is. He's out.
You're
for
out
good.
here.
If a baseball player had 200 hits for 21 consecutive seasons, Pete Rose would still have more hits.
But
Hell of a ball player.
that player would be going to the Hall of Fame,
He would.
and Pete Rose would not.
It's a shame. It's a shame that it went down the way it did, because Pete Rose, as a ball player, one of the most fun guys to watch. Not that I got to do it in person. I wish I did. But watching plenty of old games and reading articles and stories about Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle. It's a shame the way it turned out the way it did, because he was a fun guy for baseball as a player. At least the intensity he brought to the game. So segueing into our Out of the Baseline of the Year awards, baseball had some news yesterday. They made this big deal, 3 p.m. press conference on Tuesday, November 27th. They had an announcement to make. And I know this doesn't sit well with a lot of people.
Well, it definitely doesn't sit well with me, because this is my end of the year out of the baseline. Major League Baseball. Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah.
Are we out
exactly
of the baseline?
what it is.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball made an announcement yesterday.
So we're talking about this end of the year stuff. So they are already out of the baseline. Rob Manfred out of the baseline. Major League Baseball out of the baseline for telling Mike Trout he needed to market himself better. The instant replay abominations. The pace of play abominations. We've thrown Major League Baseball out for the way that they've handled domestic violence situations. But this right here, this is it. This is it. Rule 21 can go out the window now. Pete Rose, man, we've talked about this, and this is kind of segueing in from that. This is a slap in the face to Pete Rose. Yesterday, Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred announced a major gambling partnership, or gaming, as they called it, gaming partnership with MGM Grand. And as I said before, when we were talking about over-unders and I talked about expansion and some information that's going to come.
I was just going to mention that. And I think this is a little bit of foreshadowing into maybe Major League Baseball trying to soften the view Vegas, of gambling,
yes,
and kind of buttering up the fans to prepare them for the next step.
Expansion.
Which is expansion
into
to
Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Without question.
It's already happened in hockey.
It's been a
major success.
It's major success.
It's happening in football soon. And baseball has at least had the benefit of sitting back and watching how things develop with these other major sports leagues. But I think this partnership really is an indicator that there is some serious discussion.
So that's the good thing. I'm all for expansion. You're for expansion. We've talked about this exact topic before. I am totally pro-expansion in Vegas. Totally pro. But announcing a partnership when you have been at the forefront. Rule 21. Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, no betting on baseball. You've been at the forefront. And I realize that it applies to players. And it applies to managers and organizational people. I realize. But you're opening Pandora's box by branding a partnership with a gaming institution.
That's exactly what it is.
And it is a punch in the face. Although I am of the school of thought that Pete Rose, his punishment fits the crime. Rule 21 hangs in every single major league clubhouse and dugout. He knew it. He bet on games that he had influence over. It was wrong, and the punishment is right. But it doesn't mean that once you've punished him, you can just sit there and slap him in the face. And that's exactly what this is.
That's exactly what this is baseball. In Pete Rose is the most obvious. He's the guy. When you think of betting in baseball, it is Pete Rose is what you think of. And yeah, you think of Shoeless Joe and some other scandals that may have happened, but it's Pete Rose. And baseball has built this fortress around the idea of gambling is the absolute death penalty if you're involved in baseball. And it should be, especially if you continue to do things like Pete Rose has done in the years since his banning. But they have, for decades have built this wall around the
gambling
idea of gambling is complete taboo, and all of a sudden,
no place in the game.
You're starting to soften those walls a little bit
with MGM Grand.
You're making a partnership. And
there's a reason, because you're softening
on the surface of things. It's a harmless business deal, but what walls are you crumbling down with the perception?
All the walls around the 702. That's what they're doing.
Yeah,
they're softening up area code 702. That's all it is. Major League expansion is going to happen in Vegas first, I think. You think. And this indicates
after years,
years of it being no way that any team could ever go
building the reputation and perception around the gambling taboo with the association of anything baseball, and decades and decades and decades of building that perception and trying to distance itself from that, welcomes it right back in with a handshake and a whole bunch of money. So way to go, baseball. We'll see what this does. Like you said, this is nothing against Las Vegas as a potential expansion site. I would personally like to see it. I think it would be a great place.
For it.
Great place for baseball. There's a lot of transplants out that way that would love to have a team.
A lot of transplants and an awful lot of visitors.
A lot of visitors.
And that's an exponential thing,
especially with the way that baseball works. You go there for a weekend. You're there for 3 days if you're going to visit your team. You know what I mean? If you're following the Yankees to Vegas, okay, yeah,
you're there for 3 days.
We're flying in Thursday night.
Set.
We're catch the Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon game. Fly back
on getaway day.
It works even better in baseball than it would in
hockey.
I think, as far as that goes.
For the transplants and also traveling, your team traveling, you get an opportunity let's say you're a Mets fan and you get an opportunity, you got a weekend off in July and you want to go on a 3-game road series someplace and it's in Milwaukee.
Right.
It's not. They're not so.
No offense, Milwaukee.
No
we
offense,
love you.
Milwaukee. We do. We had Brewer fever, but it's in Milwaukee. Now you're in Flushing, Queens. You want to go to Milwaukee? Probably not. But they'll go to Vegas. They'll follow the Mets to Vegas. They'll follow the Yankees to Vegas. There's transplants out there from all of these cities. So I'm all for Vegas
expansion. Not to mention
expansion.
how crazy it'd be having the Dodgers playing in Vegas.
Coming out holding...
Influx of Dodgers fans coming into Vegas for the weekend.
Yeah.
West Coast teams too. Seattle, it's from anywhere. From anywhere in spending 3 days there. And it doesn't even have to be a weekend at that point. Go to the Mets are playing Tuesday through Thursday. All right, there's my vacation. I'm heading to Vegas and going to hang at MGM Grand Ballpark.
Yeah, right. The Dodgers series, like the Route 66 series, just a lot of good things can happen. I'm not against expansion in Major League Baseball, nor am I against Major League Baseball coming out and holding hands with the city of Las Vegas. Not at all, because one doesn't have to be synonymous with the other. Okay? What I have a problem with is Major League Baseball coming out and holding hands with a gambling institution
with a casino.
after being for so long, like you said, that taboo wall built around the idea that gambling has no place in the game. And now gambling does have a place in the game. It's not an invitation for the players to go out and lay sums of money on themselves or on their team. It's not.
Things.
But gambling has a place in baseball now because you've made it have a place.
Things work in cycles, and I'm not just making a Christian Yelich reference when I say that. Things work in cycles, and you soften that stance a little bit by shaking hands with MGM Grand and getting your endorsement there. 20, 30 years from now, who's to say that some kid that is 5 years old right now doesn't grow up to be the next Pete Rose because he doesn't have that getting beat into his head constantly that no gambling in baseball, no association with gaming, no association with casinos or gambling institutions. This is baseball. And not to say that will go away, but you are opening, like you said, great way of putting it, Pandora's box, to softening that perception. And it wouldn't happen overnight, but this is how it starts. This is how you start. 20, 30 years go by, and Pete Rose will just be looked at as the shoeless Joe from Gone By that people know his name but don't know the full story and think
the great compiler.
The antiquated baseball rules back when they did this and that, and they said no gambling.
Rule 21D doesn't exist anymore, apparently.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope it is, I can't see how I am wrong, but I hope I am wrong on this.
Well, so Major League Baseball,
You're out of here.
You're out
of the baseline.
Out of the baseline permanently for this season. You are my end of the year out of the baseline. SPG, who you got out of the baseline for the year?
My out of the baseline of 2018 award winner, get the booze ready, please, is Angel Hernandez.
Oh.
I'd like to see an official stat of how many minutes we have spent talking about Angel Hernandez on this show. And all of it very, very scathing, terrible, deservedly so.
Angel Hernandez, wrong.
Angel Hernandez,
wrong.
The playoff officiating he had, and that's not even including some of the terrible games he had in the regular season, but Angel Hernandez with his lawsuit against Major League Baseball claiming discrimination, and then he goes out there and
shows everybody why he doesn't belong in the playoffs.
You don't want to know the officials' names. You really don't. I mean, that's no offense to the good ones. I mean, I do know some names of the good ones, but you don't want to be a well-known umpire for having your name in the news all the time. And that's exactly what it is with Angel Hernandez, just because of how awful he is at his job.
So Angel Hernandez,
you're out of the baseline
again.
And I'll bundle that into one other quick out of the baseline of the year is, again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the season, is Major League Baseball's instant replay crap. The stuff that they throw out there to call instant replay.
Can we get an umpire camera?
Is complete garbage.
Can we get an umpire camera? Did you watch that is another thing that we didn't touch on, but the Japan All-Star Series. Did you watch those games? The umpire had a camera in his mask. It was amazing. Can we get umpire cams so we can see if Angel Hernandez really had the call or had the angle, the position? Can we get that? With this, Major League Baseball has replay on this and that and this. Put a camera on the umpire right where he's looking.
With all the things that are mentioned to make the game more exciting and all that, how is that not an easy answer? I mean, we live
anticlimactic thing.
We live in a day and age where you and I were sitting here in this studio surrounded by cameras. There's GoPros. There's all sorts of technology available to do that. You see it in hockey. The goalies wear them on their helmets in all-star games and stuff. Why do the umpires not have cameras? I don't get it. And props to Japan for doing that. And
it was awesome.
That is very cool.
It was awesome.
Hopefully that they follow suit in the States here in Major League Baseball and do that. But yeah, Angel Hernandez in Major League Baseball's shoddy, ridiculous instant replay policy that goes against everything they claim to be about with making the game more exciting and speeding up the game. Hey, we need a pitch clock. No, you know what you need to do? You don't need to stare off into space for 5 minutes with these headsets on over some stupid, minute call in the game. Sure, there's a place for it. You know, fair or foul home runs, I'll give you that. Fan interference, I'll give you that. There is no place in baseball for seeing if the second baseman was a half inch off the bag, exactly. On a double play.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
And then standing up at the top of the dugout with one finger up like this, like give me a second while your bench coach goes and gets on the horn with your replay department upstairs. How is that in the spirit of the rule? How is that in the spirit of the rule?
It essentially gets reviewed twice. It gets reviewed by the teams because they have their
to give the approval. They have their guys, thumbs up.
So it gets looked at once, and then the manager goes out and says, "Yeah, review that," and then
ridiculous.
They just stand there. There's a better way to do this, baseball. Get it together.
There's definitely, it should be an absolute that second call. Review it. That's it.
That should be it.
Hold on 1 second. I got 5 seconds while this guy up here looks at 14 different angles and sees that the pinky finger slid off and no.
Or how are they not
in the spirit of the rule
reviewing every single one of those plays before somebody says, "All right, let's get the umps out there with their battery packs and their."
What's next? Where we start reviewing balls and strikes?
Review every single play.
Are we going to start reviewing balls and strikes? Well, exactly, like in college football.
Have the call
every
ready.
Scoring play is automatically reviewed. Every scoring play in the NFL, I believe, every play under 2 minutes and a half is automatically reviewed. It doesn't need to be challenged because they realize that in the last 2 minutes of the game, these are probably pretty important calls that we should get right. So there's automatic reviews. Review every play.
Have a team looking at every play ahead of time.
Hey, Joe West, you were wrong, Joe West.
By the time the umpires wave to you, you have an instant answer. It's like, I already looked at that 15 seconds ago. And,
no, they say no.
Right. Yeah, instant answer.
Exactly. I totally agree. It needs to be fixed. So
we live in modern technology times here.
Major League Baseball instant replay policy.
Twitter and social media probably already has it reviewed before the umpires do.
Like in golf, when the Twitter users will text the PGA and say, "We just noticed a penalty on Dustin Johnson. You got to go call him on it."
And they do. They go back.
I know they do.
That's a whole nother story.
They're
out of the baseline, too.
Yeah.
You're out of here!
Yeah, if you're sitting someplace in Decatur on a Sunday afternoon around the TV in the living room with your wife and you got your feet up on the couch.
Looking for penalties.
And you're looking for penalties on in the Dustin Johnson group, the final group, listen, just stop. Do something else. Decatur can't be all that bad. Jeez. Yeah, you guys are out of the baseline.
You're out of here!
But Major League Baseball, you found yourself out of here again. Please don't do it for next year.
And I hope our listeners don't take that. We're sitting here trashing Major League Baseball and the umpires.
We wouldn't have a show right now if we didn't love Major League Baseball. So
the game of baseball, especially.
yes,
The game
we wouldn't
itself,
have a show,
outside of any organization.
but nobody's above out of
the
it.
game in its purity is what I love the most.
Yeah, nobody is above getting.
That's
thrown.
why I love sitting here and
Right,
talking to you about it for a whole season now.
26.
That's just about a wrap on our
26
on our
episodes.
first season. I can't believe it.
We've evolved so much. We got such a little show here, and it's our little boy is about to grow up and become a man next year. Stick around next year. We got all sorts of great stuff that, like we said,
The baseline comes into its own.
Lots of broadcasting
season.
live next year. Lots of it. We're going to go out on the road. We are going to be in Cooperstown, New York. We're going to get these guests in here to talk baseball and baseball memorabilia and everything. Can't wait. And we thank everybody out there on Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah, and
Facebook.
Keep an eye out on
Instagram.
on our Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff too. Because even though season 1 is just about over, we are one Mariano Rivera strike away from wrapping it up here. We will be all over the place giving you the latest news and interesting tidbits and retweeting things and sharing things on Facebook. Like I mentioned, those Baseball King stats are awesome. You'll see a few of those posted from us.
So you can find us on Facebook at The Baseline.
Yeah.
Or find us on Disruption Network. You can find our episodes and past episodes on disruptionnetwork.net. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch. But also you can follow me on Twitter. I am at The Baseline, Baseline, I'm sorry, not The Baseline, but Baseline JP. And Sean is at Baseline315. You can find us on the twits. See what we're following.
Lots of big news to come. We got to see where Bryce Harper ends up. We got to see where Manny Machado ends up.
While you're on the twits,
Patrick Corbin
make sure you follow.
That's an interesting one to keep an eye on too, because Patrick Corbin's just about to visit the New York Yankees. So we'll see if that's a fit.
New segments coming up for next year. We already got into don't be that fan and that's so Metty. Maybe a little what would old Hoss Radborn do?
Another season of following Johnny Field and his little buddy Ronald Torreyes.
Yes, little buddy. We got a new guy in the saga now. The saga of the Johnny Field and his little buddy. Yes, I love it.
Big Toe.
Big Toe.
The Field Man and Big Toe.
But we've already thanked our sponsors. Lots of them out there.
Thank you so much.
And I've thanked Disruption Network. But I really want to thank you. Thanks for signing on to do this with me.
Well, thank you. It's been a great first season. I think we've done pretty good, and we've talked about a lot of stuff, and we've made some predictions that were good, some predictions that were bad, and we've had a lot of fun here on season 1, and I can't wait to do it. Like you said, much improved baseline coming your way next season. The sky is the limit, my friend.
Yes. We're taking it. We are taking it there. So, without further ado, man,
for the final time this season,
that's going to be it, man. We're going to go. So, thank you everybody for sticking around with us. For SPG, I'm JP. Season 1 is in the books of the Baseline.
We'll see you in March.
We're going to see you in February or March, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. See ya.
We're out.
The greatest person I know, and since you love coffee and lattes and cappuccinos, I got you a Keurig K-Cafe brewer.
Kids had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner, the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey and the Duke. Well, Casey was winning, Hank Aaron was beginning, one Robbie going out, one coming in. Kiner and Midget Goodell, the Thumper and Mel Parnell, and Ike was the only one winning down in Washington. I'm talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Duke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially
So you just bought your dream home, and now it's time to move. Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broking everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Hey, Disruption Network. This is Mike Sacco, the general manager at NYE Volkswagen of Rome. If you don't know me by name, it's only because you have not received the best deal. There's only one reason to leave Utica, and that's to come see me in Rome and get the best deal on your next new, pre-owned, or certified VW. Mention that you heard this ad from Disruption Network and receive $250 off your next vehicle purchase. You'll know why our customers say, I love my NYE VW. Come see us at 5865 Rome Taberg Road in Rome, or visit us online at nyevwofrome.com.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish, and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
The Disruption Network is making moves. For upcoming events, news, interviews, and new daily programming, keep in the loop with us at DisruptionNetwork.net. Like, follow, and subscribe to all our social media. And check out all our podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Get up on the D, DisruptionNetwork.net.